Before we get rolling, I want to let you know that the sponsor of this video and I are going to be giving away a $150 Amazon gift card. Just watch this video and I'll tell you how to win it. It's very easy. You can also scan the QR code from mobile or go to the link in the description down below to take part in that giveaway. All right, let's get going. Destiny is in a weird low period right now, probably the lowest it has been content-wise in a while. Not only are players completely understandably playing some of the new releases like Call of Duty Reskin, Battlefield 2077, or Halo Battle Pass Simulator, but also because the season is longer due to Bungie spending more time developing the Witch Queen, it gets these weird long periods of content drought. Until the December update, I wanted to share some of the best ideas I have seen from you in the community for exotic weapons and armors, whether it be Hunter, Warlock, or Titan, Power, Special, or Primary. I have pulled your ideas from YouTube comments, Patreon, Discord, as well as this new extension I got on Twitch, and I found some art from Google Images. All sources to these arts, by the way, will be linked in the description down below if they're an independent artist, so if you see something from a game, just, it's from a game. I refined some of these ideas to better polish them and got to creating. We have today an exotic Warmind hand cannon Titan gauntlets that channel the Dragonborn, and many, many more. And if you're having difficulty like me finding friends to play with in Destiny in these sort of off-season droughts, install Plink. It's a great LFG app that analyzes all your in-game stats and behavior. Just connect any of your gaming profiles like PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, or any PC gaming platform, and Plink will show you your friends' stats along with your own statistics. It's never been that easy to compete with your friends. See who's online and stay in touch with all players from around the globe. Create your own gaming squad and never play alone again. Connect with other gamers and build a community you've always wanted. Plink will match you with like-minded gamers and teammates with similar KDs, favorite playtimes, games, etc., like Destiny, Apex, Rainbow Six Siege, PUBG, Fortnite, League of Legends, GTA 5, Call of Duty. You name it, they have it. I wasn't able to find a single game this application doesn't support. Get all the info about new games or achievements of your followers in your newsfeed and join them as they start playing. And today, Plink and I, like I mentioned, we want to make a special present for you. I will pick a subscriber from my profile in Plink randomly, and the winner will get a Amazon gift card for $150 from our sponsor. I will announce the winner's name on my Plink squad in about a week. All you have to do is install Plink, add me, get a push notification when I start to play, and let's have some fun together. Our first exotic idea comes from, oh man, he's gonna hate I'm gonna call him this. It's gonna be recorded in history forever. Weevil. He prefers to be called W3, but he's gonna be so triggered in our Discord, who has the exotic idea of the third movement. It is a musical bow that's supposed to encourage the creative side of the community as well as being an interesting weapon. So his idea, he didn't specify exactly whether this is supposed to be kinetic or energy. Let's just assume this is kinetic for just simplicity's sake. That is a 720 draw time, so a bit longer on the draw time than what we might be used to for, say like those more precision frames. But the exotic perk with this is called Perdendosi. Yeah, that. It's Italian, it's music talk. I don't do music talk that much. I just play the keyboard, that's it. His exotic perk was pretty interesting. I liked what he was going for. I wanted to refine this a little bit to make this a little bit more viable for something that's in game, because as much as it is cool to have something that is, purely for the creative side of things, I think Bungie would want something that players would actually want to go after, right? A reason to invest in this weapon outside of just being kind of a fun little thing to do on the side, right? His exotic perk says that once you shoot this bow at a perfect draw, the song begins. At specific points, once you draw, you can release sooner for a perfect draw. So essentially, it kind of starts this song and then you can draw and release a little bit sooner, depending if the song is coming up for that sort of tempo with it, right? I wanted to take this idea and refine it down even further. The rest of his idea is that you could actually play this song back once the activity ends, which is really cool. I don't know if Bungie would support that. Being that we're not even getting something like SRL, and we can barely shade things, like we can't even shade exotic weapons, I don't know if Bungie would support that, as much as that would be really neat to see for like videos and such, right? So here's what I took this and refined this to. Obviously we have the Perdendosi. Yeah, that perk, which I've reworked just a bit, and it is now perfectly drawn arrows create a tempo for your shots that vary in damage depending on how long the arrows were held. For the back end side of things, for you more musical nerds, these can play at intervals of 3 and 5 maybe, just to kind of make sure that it always sounds good depending on who's releasing it. And this tempo that would start, you'd actually hear from the instrument itself, from the weapon itself. So at quarter notes, half notes and such, you could actually short draw this just a little bit less, and you would actually deal similar amounts of damage as if you were to, fully draw this thing, but obviously at a much shorter draw time. The obvious difference is that you don't really get to pick when this happens, you just kind of have to go, right? And the exotic perk with this is Chorus. Precision hits ricochet arrows to nearby enemies and plays a harmonic tone. So if you were to hit a target with this with a precision hit, that hit would then ricochet between all of the targets, and each of those targets would sound off with a slightly different note. I think this could be a lot of fun, both from a just design perspective of being a fun gun, or I guess bow, to play with in this, but also is a really interesting way to take a bow. We don't really have any exotic bows that play specifically around shortening the draw time, right? Like all of these are built around like having a perfect draw and dealing extra damage, or doing something slightly easier, or doing something special while you have the arrow drawn or something, right? So I really like this idea, and I think this could be really, really cool. I would love to play this in PvP. Somebody in the comments of this this post actually said that this has some serious Octavia vibes from Warframe. I could totally see that. I love this idea. I think if it was just, like I said, just refined just a little bit more to be a slightly more viable in game, this could be really, really cool. Great submission, W3. This next submission is actually through our Twitch by the user Call Me Stall. I've got this little suggestion box things that I've calibrated to be specifically for taking links and ideas for exotic ideas. So if you want to check that out and you want to have another avenue of actually submitting your ideas, check us out on Twitch, twitch.tv/TDT_streams. All the links will be in the description and such. But what we're looking at here is probably the most interesting Warmind related weapon I've ever seen. I've seen some weapons come up that have suggested a Warmind like weapon, a weapon built around Warminds. And now that we're kind of pulling away and Warminds have been nerfed a little bit, I think this could really work. I absolutely love the art that I found for this as well. Again, links in the description for these people because this was so damn good looking. This is called the Feld War Mine. The flavor text reads, Feldwinter was born in Hellfire. This will capture that experience and burn you whole. The intrinsic perk for this is called Hell Forged Casings. Rapid precision hits cause a solar burst around the target. So it's rapid precision hits themselves, not precision kills. So think Firefly, or maybe even you could go for something like the Polaris Lance, where it actually causes this explosion. And this would be a 4 times the charm sort of deal. So you'd have to be 4 rapid precision hits to cause this explosion, and that explosion would actually just be straight damage, right? Unlike the Polaris Lance, which I know these are kind of similar to one another. Obviously, different ranges, different weapons, etc., right? But we got to be careful of that kind of thing because these are both solar, right? But the big thing to this, the thing that I find the most interesting, and I went back and forth on this for a while, so you'll have to let me know in the comments if this is something that you feel is a little much, or if this is something you feel like would break the game or what have you. And this is the Fallen Star. This is the exotic perk where rapid precision kills can spawn an ally empowering Warmind cell. So when we say empowering Warmind cell, basically when you're near this thing, it gives you a rough damage bump of about 5%, which isn't a lot, but you can stack these up to 3 times for a maximum of 15%, which obviously is pretty nice. But you get a Warmind cell, which has a whole bag of things that can, come out of that, right? I think if we were to do this in PvP, because that's the big thing, right? Because obviously a weapon that generates Warmind cells isn't that revolutionary. It'd be cool to definitely support that more PvE playstyle, but I think my biggest concern is how this would affect in PvP. Can we comfortably and realistically put Warmind cells in PvP and not have it break the game? And I say cautiously, yes, assuming the Warmind mods don't work, which we already have like Charge of Light mods that just straight don't work in PvP anyway. So I don't think that'd be too much of a logical leap, especially for players, obviously for Bungie. But what would these Warmind cells do? I think if they were essentially like an 8-meter radius kill, so when you saw this thing pop out, because it obviously takes a few shots to actually explode, when you saw this thing pop out, if you're within 8 meters of when that thing actually gets shot and then detonates, you're dead, which is fine. I think that's fair. I mean, we have a lot of other types of perks that do something very similar to that, and it requires rapid precision kills. So you'd have to get on at least 2, maybe 3 kills in a row with rapid precision hits in order to get this to spawn. I think that's pretty fair. I think that's a pretty fair cost to reward, and I love the way this thing looks. This thing looks so cool. This next idea comes from our Patreon, and this is from the user TKG Wildfire, who had the idea of gauntlets. I wasn't unfortunately able to find gauntlets that really work for this, so I'm just gonna make these robes. I'm sorry, just technical limitations, called the Blood Reavers. This exotic is built around the idea of consuming your health for ability regen, and there's a lot going on here, and this one definitely required me to think about this a bit more because of how much is actually happening, and I'll explain that as we get into this. But the intrinsic perk with this, he had a lot going for this and a lot of specific numbers and damage and stuff, so I'll boil this down a bit. Long press an uncharged ability to charge it from your health reserves. After, you will be unable to regain health from recovery or healing sources. Deal damage to regain health instead. I know that was a lot, but here's the short version. Let's say you wanted to get your grenade back, but you actually don't have any grenade energy. What you can do is you can hold that grenade button down as if you were going to like proc devour or do a handheld supernova or an overcharged grenade, and it will draw energy from your health to feed into your grenade's energy. The numbers that he gave was roughly 2% of ability energy for every 1 point of HP, which I think it'd be much better if it was just a straight 1-for-1, but the other side of things, the other half of that perk, is quite interesting. After you do this, you'll be unable to regain health or recovery from normal sources. So like healing rifts, things like Lumina, they just don't work. But the only way you can is to actually deal damage, right? Now, at face value, that seems like a really big nerf, right? And he had it suggest that it would last 20 seconds and that it would have, that would just be just a 1 stack. I think this would be better if this was more of like a stacking system, where as you continue to hold this thing down, it would give you more and more stacks of malicious rebukes, which if you were to get it up to, from 0 to 100, it would be 100 stacks, which would mean that for 100 seconds you had this, which is a big deal. But as you dealt damage, you would also consume those stacks and give you health back. And this is damage from any sources, any abilities, any weapons, anything would give you a small portion of your health back as you dealt and did with this, right? So obviously, if you were to just snipe somebody in the face, as soon as you did this, you've got all your health back and you got Malicious Rebuke procced. It could be pretty cool, but there's this big trade-off. There's so much going on here. I would love to get some of your opinions on if this is too complicated or if this is just right, because I can even think of something like taking this into like PvE for Nightfalls that have the attrition modifier, which make you unable to regenerate health, where if you were to proc this intentionally and you could just get your health back that way, right? Like there's a lot of things that like reduce your health in like strikes and such, right? But a really cool idea. I would love to see Warlocks go for a more vampire-like approach, which is what this art is from. This is just something I found on Amazon. So really cool idea, but let me know in the comments what you think of this one. Let's roll into the next one. Next up from the user in our Patreon named MadBro, we have the Second Amendment, which ironically, this has nothing to do with it. I think he was just trying to make this pun right here. The right to bear's arms, as quoted by Zavala. This exotic is a Titan Gauntlet exotic, and yes, these are Skyrim. I think these are Obsidian. What's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember the name. Oh no, my nerd card is going to be revoked. I can't remember the name of these gauntlets. Oh crap. Oh no. All right, well, I'm sure I'll think of it later. The exotic perk is called Shot Put, where sprinting builds a momentum shifting shoulder charge. He said that this doesn't deal any damage. I think that would be too much. I think it'd be much better if these actually still dealt their damage, but just had a buff on top of it. But anyway, the longer you sprint, the more knockback you deal. Now, if you understand what this perk is going for, you'll understand why I chose Skyrim specifically to represent these gauntlets, because the idea is that if you were to sprint for a really long time, sort of similar to how Dune Marchers work, but Dune Marchers is binary. It's either on or it's off, right? Whereas with these, they would be, continuous. You can continue to build this perk until you reach maximum stacks of this thing, right? But anyway, if you were to reach the maximum stacks of this, you could launch somebody 400% of a normal knockback. I'm thinking something similar to like just yeeting somebody so hard into a wall that they just die instantly, which is why, by the way, I think that these should still deal damage, or just dealing normal damage, and just having an incredible amount of knockback on top of that would be a lot of fun. Also with this is something I was a bit of a dangerous idea, so I left this off for the official, quote-unquote, official release of this, is that if you miss, let's say you get sprinting and you actually miss with your shoulder charge, the knockback would be applied to you. Now, at face value, that seems like just a bad thing to do, but then if you think about it, that could be a really good way to skip large portions of the map. And I think that might be maybe just a little much because the speed at which you'd be flying, I'm assuming, would be roughly equivalent to you teleporting from one side of the map to the other, or maybe using something like Middletree, the Thunder Crash, that actual super itself, to get from one side of the map to the other, which might be a bit too strong of a movement option. So I decided to cut that one off from this, but I don't know, maybe you guys disagree, just let me know. I love this idea. I don't think the name is very appropriate, but it is funny nonetheless. Let's roll on to the featured exotic of this week from our YouTube comments. For our featured exotic of this week, we have another fusion rifle. Fusion rifle exotics are always interesting because I feel like there's a lot of design space in there, right? Like they're a weapon type that we don't see a lot of exploration in, with things like their charge time, their damage, their range, their actual spread pattern. There's like a lot of things you can do with this. So I'm always interested when I see something like this, right? And this one definitely caught my eye from the user Bionic Caliber, who had the idea of the octet rule. It's an arc fusion rifle with the flavor text, no matter how strong your bond is, I can break it, as quoted from Max's 12. War nerds, let me know if that's somebody significant. The exotic perk is called Ionic Onslaught. Kills grant stacks of IO, which reduce reload and charge times, which very straightforward perk. I'm assuming that this is a longer charge time, like a higher damage, longer charge time, similar to things like Merciless and such, right? So that this would actually, be somewhat balanced. Because obviously, if you have a rapid fire fusion rifle that after, let's say, 2 kills just becomes a shotgun, that can be really scary in PvP, right? Because that's a 17-meter shotgun right there. But hopefully, I'm assuming that the creator meant that this is supposed to be a longer charge time, which would make this a little bit more reasonable. It can stack up to 10 times, which is a lot. So yeah, again, lending more credence to the fact there's probably a longer charge time. But the big one for this, the big perk that makes this super interesting, is the exotic perk called Localized EMP. When at 10 stacks of IO, shots cause blinding and targets take more damage. This is supposed to be a debuff weapon. So obviously this is not something that's going to happen that often in actual PvP, where this could be extremely strong, but in PvE, you could kind of like do something similar, like a Sturm and Drang thing, where you could get kills building up to a specific, a stack of this thing, and then just unload when you finally get to a boss. Localized EMP is a big utility and damage tool, as not only is your stacks of IO up to 10, which means that you're firing this thing stupidly fast and dealing a ridiculous amount of damage, but also because that localized EMP is now triggering, it means that your targets are going to be taking more damage and they're going to be blinded, which can be huge for handling things like champions or bigger enemies. Great idea. I love that there's like this build up that you have to go into it, but it can be really strong. Like there's a min and a max to it, right? Like a really, really nice idea that I think would be a lot of fun to build entire builds around this thing, right? Like I could totally see something like this running with like the transversive steps, or maybe like the Sealed Akamkara's Grasp, where you can keep this thing loaded with ammo and you can just go on a tear. I think this would be a lot of fun. He did have a catalyst for this as well, which I think is maybe a bit much, which is Scatter Radiation. Enemies killed while under the effects of the localized EMP explode. Enemies near the explosion become affected by localized EMP, which it just sounds like, what is that perk? Chain Reaction, yeah, but with this obviously much more powerful explosion, which is a little bit much, just a little bit. But still, great idea nonetheless. Honestly, all of these ideas, this is one of the best turnouts I've ever seen for exotic ideas. I'm not sure if that it's just the people who have been here like are starting to refine their ideas more, or people are kind of getting a little bit bored, so they're experimenting with their own ideas more. But regardless, I'm thankful for it. Thank you all so much for the continued support on these. Be sure to check the link in the description below for our sponsor. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Bless your faces, and deuces.